Hello everybody, this is Funk McLovin. This is a video about VRISKA circuit and ERIDAN Ampora. Is it Ampora or Ampera? I'm sure the comments will have a heated debate about that. So this is a little slideshow I'm putting together because my video editing software is not available to me at the moment, so this is something I can whip together on my laptop pretty quick in Google Slides. VRISKA versus ERIDAN. Who is worse? Now, before I begin, I do want to say that I think comparing VRISKA and ERIDAN is kind of lopsided to begin with, because VRISKA in the comic was given a lot more opportunity to justify herself and become a better person, when ERIDAN just seems to have been discarded after, the murder stuck stuff. I think that Hussey was going for just kind of a jerk, a villain with ERIDAN, a kind of upper class asshole, but I don't really know. I think that he could have gotten more if that was at all possible. So, court is now in session. I was not able to get a soundboard together, so just imagine that you hear the Ace Attorney judge gavel sound effect here. Maybe imagine in your head just like a Ace Attorney music stinger or something. Just do the work for me, all right? We're going to be judging VRISKA and ERIDAN based on the two following criteria: crimes and vibes. Now, crimes, I decided to go into sort of, judging them based on the American legal system as if they were adults, because I think that's kind of fun. And I judge them by vibes because people seem to care much more about their vibes than some sort of, stereotypical approach to their actual crimes. So first we're going to talk... Oh, hey. Hello. I forgot I put this as the slide background. First we're going to talk about ERIDAN's vibes. We're going to start off with vibes because I think they're more important, and I want to leave the sort of technical stuff to the end. Look at this dude. His vibes, they're rancid. They're horrid. He's a little fuckboy, but he's got a little bit of riz. You know what I'm saying? He's got a little tiny bit of riz. Everyone had a little cringy phase when they were 13. Who cares? He looks kind of like a Tumblr guy, right? He looks like a guy who would get on Tumblr and argue about if, Shrek 1 or 2 was the better movie, and he would make, an impassioned speech about it. Man, this is kind of a tangent, but I've always thought that Shrek 2 was the superior movie. There's a lot of reasons I think that. I remember watching it more as a kid. That's probably all. But I think it's a more sort of sophisticated film, It has a lot of adult themes. I recently rewatched the original 4 movies shortly after the Puss in Boots movie came out. And so I kind of have it fresh in my head, like this whole Shrek debate. Maybe that's why I added it as a slide on here, that he looks like a Tumblr guy who would argue about Shrek. Didn't he talk about Shrek in, his Pester Quest? I've never played the Pester Quest route for ERIDAN, so I'm not sure. But yeah, Shrek 2... better film, in my opinion. In fact, let's just go ahead and recap the Shrek movies real quick, just to, get some of that groundwork out of the way, just so I can get this tangent out of the way. Shrek 1 versus Shrek 2. I think that these films, it's fair to weigh them together because they sort of had a similar cultural impact. Shrek 1 obviously released in 2001, Shrek 2 in 2004. Shrek 1 was more reliant on the absurdity of defying Disney, and Shrek 2 was more defined around sort of these cultural hot takes. Not cultural hot takes, like these references to culture. Shrek 1 and 2 were both pre-Disney live action and pre-Disney homogeneity. It's kind of hard to remember a world where Disney did not rule, where Disney was just another company who made cartoons. I mean, Disney's always been there. There's always been Disney World and Disneyland and whatever, but it's hard to remember a time where they weren't the word on animation. I wrote here, they were a post-Disney Katzenberg, sticking it to the fairy tale stories, right? There's that famous scene in Shrek 1 that somebody once told me where he wipes his ass with a fairy tale. That's kind of one of the producers, Katzenberg, whose first name I don't remember, where he's sort of, sticking it to his old boss. He used to work at Disney, and they fired him. He worked on movies like Treasure Planet, and if memory serves, he worked on the Ariel movie, Little Mermaid, and a couple other Disney Renaissance films. So let's talk about first Shrek 1. Let's get this out of the way. I know I picked kind of a crusty little JPEG for the background, but you're going to have to bear with me. So let's talk about Shrek 1, just so we can get this tangent out of the way. Shrek 1 was a response to Disney's existing works. It sort of takes a lot of notes from Beauty and the Beast, but kind of flips it on its head. Like I wrote here, it's a tale as old as time, reframed around the Beast and embracing otherness. So if you compare Beauty and the Beast to Shrek, you see a lot of similarities, where Shrek is obviously the Beast, and in a normal story, he might have to change in a certain way and become more sociable and more approachable. But in the end, it is actually Fiona who decides to come to Shrek's level to do that. So it's kind of a inverted Beauty and the Beast, because Fiona is embracing something in her that is monstrous instead of Shrek inviting something that is beautiful in him. Again, let's talk about the characters real quick. I think the characterization in this film is wonderful. It establishes the main trio of Shrek, Donkey, and Fiona. Shrek begins the film unable to balance his loneliness and his need for affirmation and connection, but he ends the film with a healthy group of friends and loved ones. But, very critically, he does not give up his loner nature. He remains a loner throughout this film. I think that's very fascinating. It's a good message about radical self-acceptance, about knowing who you are. The fact that the scene "Ogres Have Layers" is still so resounding in pop culture, it says a lot to me. The fact that this had a stranglehold on pop culture in a way that no film since has. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you grew up in the 2000s, you remember seeing Shrek on fucking everything. There was Shrek Go-Gurt. There was a Shrek ketchup. I wish I had a picture of this, but I don't. So let's compare Shrek 1, which is a great movie in its own right, to Shrek 2. This is the poster for Shrek 2. It's got Puss in Boots in it because I wanted to talk about him briefly. But here's Shrek 2. It's a story about an existing relationship in turmoil without relying on the will they, won't they tropes. In other words, Fiona and Shrek remain a couple during the entire movie. In fact, the only time where they are in jeopardy is when Prince Charming is lying about being Shrek, right? They are never in jeopardy as a couple. Fiona is very loyal, and Shrek is obviously very loyal to Fiona. It builds upon the first adventure in a very straightforward way, and introduces several series staples, most prominently Puss in Boots. I believe that the ugly stepmother, voiced by Larry King, was introduced here, but I might be wrong. She definitely had an expanded role. And Prince Charming serving as the villain is, again, like Shrek 1, a very good commentary on the Disney formula, the sort of sterilizing of fairy tales for children, essentially. What I think is interesting about Shrek 2 is the characterization. Fiona's father does not accept his daughter for who she is or accept who she is choosing to marry. Does that sound familiar? Now, I'm not trying to say that Shrek 2 is a queer narrative, because I don't think it is. I don't think that much intentionality can be read into it. But I do think that Shrek 2 has this sort of surprisingly common experience of your dad not liking who you're dating, and externalizes it to being about them being ogres, something external. It is fundamentally a story of testing your own self-worth, which again Shrek earned in the first movie, against society's expectations, represented by Fiona's father. Her mom doesn't really factor in. She kind of likes Shrek from the beginning, if I remember correctly, but you know that's a different thing. It's also a fun and cool movie with a lot of cool things. My personal favorite set piece is the big gingerbread man. That is very striking. I don't think I'll ever forget the big gingerbread man. I fucking love the big gingerbread man. But again, this is a surprisingly common thing. Also, it has the fairy godmother, which is just the fucking best. The I Need a Hero bit is like iconic, past anything that I could ever dream up. Also, that Widow's Peak. Jane Crocker vibes, right? Jane Crocker vibes a little bit. Just a little bit right here. Anyway, back to the back to mixtape and what's his tits. ERIDAN's cooler because he has a cape. VRISKA's okay. She has a jacket, but capes are cooler. So ERIDAN is the superior character. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the my video about VRISKA and ERIDAN. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that I was able to impart the complexity and depth of these two characters to you. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and never forget that I am your eternal buddy. I hope no one gets pissed off about the thumbnail of this video and makes a stupid comment not watching the video. I hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, goodbye. Subscribe, like, comment, subscribe to my Patreon.